All right, let's go to the questions, and we'll go, I'll call on you two at a time. Let's begin with Charles Odom from Associated Press, and then we'll go to Seth Emerson with The Athletic.
Greg, President Morehead mentioned trying to talk to you as recently as last week about changing your mind. As I understand it, you've been talked out of this before in previous years. Can you talk about those previous deliberations and what was different this time?
Well, Charles, when you come back to your alma mater, you want to leave it a little bit better. And there were some situations. I mean, we were ready to do things earlier, but COVID came along, and we just knew that wasn't the right time to go through any change. The president had enough on his hands to navigate everything he has to navigate, and I certainly didn't want to add to that. And we thought initially that COVID may be on the downturn by this time, but obviously it's still with us and everything. But I just didn't want him to have to worry about athletics and wanted to lead us through this time. And I really appreciate Cheryl's patience, because as I've told all our staff and everything, that we relocated, bought a home in Florida. And Cheryl's been down there since July, fixing the place up and renovating some areas. And I've been down there as often as I can. But once you've been married 42 years, life as a bachelor is not a lot of fun. So the president's right. Cheryl trumped the president in this situation. And so good things will be in store for the future.
For Jerry, I know that you don't want to entertain search questions, but let me try it this way. How did, with Josh going into the interim role, and clearly everyone expects him to be a candidate, how did you balance that? Did you think about that this is a tryout for him, or did you think about that this may be kind of awkward to have him in that position as a candidate?
Well, definitely not awkward, because I think what's most important right now is to maintain stability in the senior leadership of athletics. I think one of the great things we have right now is a really strong senior leadership team. And by installing both Josh and Doris into the two leadership positions on an interim basis, I wanted to send a signal to the entire athletic organization that we are strong, that we're stable, that I have confidence in the individuals that Greg has put in senior leadership positions. I give you an example. Will Lawler, in my opinion, is the best guy in America doing his job in compliance. We were lucky enough to lure him away from the SEC, where he was doing that for the conference, to come to UGA. And there's no one better than Will. And I think Kirby Smart or Tom Crean or Joni Taylor or anyone would tell you that. And so I want to send a really strong signal to this senior leadership team that whoever is the next athletic director, I have great confidence in the people that Greg has assembled to run the Athletic Association.
Right, let's go to Mark Weiser from the Athens Banner Herald, and then Anthony Dasher from UGAsports.com.
Greg, where is your home in Florida that you bought, and what do you envision your day-to-day life being like in 2021? Will you have any role in athletics, like from a consultant standpoint?
Well, first question is Ponte Vedra Beach, and second question, I don't know. Mark, I've been so focused on this role, and I really haven't really given much thought to other opportunities. I'm not one that's going to sit around the house. Cheryl's already told me that. I've straightened up the closet and washed enough windows to know that that's not a full-time job around the house. So, I'm sure there'll be opportunities in the future. I'm not sure what areas, if it'd be college athletics, I don't know. But I really haven't had time to focus on that because we've been so tied up into things here in Athens and trying to keep the program afloat and moving in the right direction.
President Morehead, again, kind of follow up on what Seth asked you a second ago. Obviously, this is a prime job in the athletic director world. I was just kind of curious if any potential candidates have already kind of reached out to you or your office.
I haven't spoken directly or indirectly with any potential candidates. I'm sure as this process unfolds, that will happen. There are a number of channels where that will be possible to take place. Michael Luthi, who heads the UGA search group, will be managing this search for me, and we'll certainly establish some channels of communication that will make that possible. I obviously have a lot of contacts serving not only in a leadership role with the SEC and working with Commissioner Sankey, but also at the NCAA level on the NCAA Board of Governors. So I will use those contacts as needed to ensure that those channels remain open. So we'll just see how the process plays out.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to Chip Towers with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and then Mike Griffith with Dog Nation.
If I could first ask Jerry, just interested in your timeline here, your statement that sounded like you were aiming for a quick turn on this. Generally, do you have an ideal timeline? And if I could ask Greg something real quick after Mr. Morehead answers.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't established a firm timeline, but I obviously want this to move along expeditiously. I don't want this to drag out for, months and months and months into the future. But we need to have a sufficient enough timeline to make sure that the advisory committee is able to advise me on all of the significant candidates that have an interest in the job.
And Greg, making sure I'm clear, it sounds like that you were leaning pretty hard in this direction before COVID hit and maybe stayed on because of COVID. So I understand that you might have retired at the end of the fiscal year had COVID not hit, first. And secondly, is there one or two things out there that you really want to get around to doing in retirement?
Oh, wow. I'll answer the last part of that first. There's nothing to, from a retirement standpoint. I hadn't really thought about those things, Chip, moving forward. We'll just let things be dictated as they develop and everything. But, I remember the president and I were together in Nashville at the SEC basketball tournament, as many of you were. And, timing's everything in life, and that just wasn't the right time during that time. So, now's the right time. But again, I appreciate everything the president's done, and it's we've had a lot of discussions on this, and I appreciate his desire to want me to stay on and everything. But it's just time now. But certainly, COVID stepped in and kind of messed up a lot of people with their plans and everything, but everything always turns out for the right reason, and that's where we are today.
If I could add something to what Greg has said, Chip, I really think it's been extremely important to have had Greg in this role since COVID hit in March. And I think if you talk to Greg Sankey, our SEC commissioner, he would say the same thing, because having individuals like Mitch Barnhart at Kentucky and Greg McGarity at Georgia, seasoned athletic directors in the room on a lot of these calls with and without presidents, as we had to make a number of difficult decisions in figuring out how we restart athletics and how we restart it and when we restart it. It was important to have Greg. And then it was important, I think, for our own athletic department to have him as we had to implement the plan that the NCAA and the SEC authorized us to move forward on. So yes, I'd love to have had Greg stay longer, but it was really important to have him during this significant part of the pandemic. And we can all hope that we'll see a vaccine in the near future that begins to get distributed, and that we begin in the coming months to turn the corner on this pandemic. But it's been a challenge for me at the university level, and I know it's been a challenge for Greg, certainly been a challenge for our commissioner, but I think having some seasoned individuals has helped a lot.
Thank you.
I think we're back to Mike Griffith.
Thanks, Claude. Greg, I know you've done a lot over the last 10 years. I know you don't have a list in front of you, but could you reflect on some of the key, I don't know if contributions or movements or decisions? I mean, obviously George is in a very advantageous place, all things considered right now. When you look back, and it's time to do that, Greg, don't dodge the question. What are some of the things that you're proud of that you've accomplished over the last 10 years?
You know, Mike, it's interesting that you bring that up because, you know, I was thinking about the top 3 or 4 moments. You know, I think back to the concert in Sanford Stadium back in 2013. I think it's the first time and maybe the only time everyone will leave Sanford Stadium happy. But that night, that environment was just magical, and, you know, it's just a rewarding experience. But the top 3 had to be, in my mind, Notre Dame in 17, going to Chicago. I remember the president and I, we were together, and we were in Chicago Thursday night. We rode to South Bend on Friday, had a tour of the stadium, a nice lunch, and then went up to our hotel up in, I think it was right on the Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes, and that game was just remarkable. And then to be followed by the Rose Bowl, I think that was just something that was just monumental. The whole week, it was like fantasy land, and to win the game and advance to Atlanta and to be in the Rose Bowl, winning that game. But, you know, the best was Notre Dame last year in my mind. Kevin Butler and I were texting earlier about that experience because he and I were standing together in the west end zone on the field. And you had the national anthem going, you had the flyover, you had just a beautiful weather, you had the new lights. You know, that day was so magical. I think all of us that were there knew that this, everything came together in a perfect way. And it was one of those times to where you just kind of shake your head and say, you know, we need to remember this, because it was, as I told Kevin, it's probably the most emotional I've ever been, be on the field during the anthem and see it all unfold. But, you know, those are the big stage moments that I'll remember. But there's so many others, Mike. I mean, just being able to work alongside great people and see what's happened recently with facilities and the way our donors have responded financially to really pay for everything has been really rewarding. But there's so many things. We could take up the whole call with this. But those are a few of the highlights.
Thank you,
Right,
Greg.
let's go to Dean Legge with Dog Post, and then Jake Rowe with 247 Sports.
Jerry, I want to ask you, what kind of pressure do you get at your from boosters, or from boosters is probably the wrong word, Georgia partisans, about success in athletics, and how complicated is it to deal with that in a fundraising capacity for the university? How important are athletics to the trajectory of fundraising at the university?
I hear about it a lot. And, you know, sometimes the criticisms are justified and make sense. Sometimes they come from a perspective of people not having the knowledge or the background that Greg or I may have on the issue. And to me, that's one of the things I'm really going to miss when Greg leaves. He probably won't miss it, but it's having to deal with text messages from me at 11 p.m. Or calls even on holidays when somebody is upset about something. And he's always been calm and steady and had the right information to give me that's allowed me to explain and navigate some of these concerns that you hear from time to time. But clearly, I think when people are happy about the success of our athletic program, it tends to have a positive impact on the feelings that they have for the University of Georgia, and therefore the support that they provide to the University of Georgia. I don't think it's inextricably linked. I think we have a lot of donors that give to the university because they love the university. And we have some donors that give to athletics solely because they care about athletics. But I think most people care about both, and they really like it when they see Georgia ranked in the top 15 of the best public research universities in America, and then they see our football team ranked very high in the national polls as well. I think there's a certain pride level, and it makes my job easier, certainly when we're able to be out and to have the sort of donor events that we've had many of over the last several years.
Greg, wanted to ask you, obviously this your position can be kind of a thankless position and it's in its nature, but if you could write your own legacy, if you could be the guy that just put it out there for now to the end of time, what would that be? What would you want your time at Georgia to be characterized as?
Oh, Jake, just to make this place a little bit better. We all understand we're just temporary holders of these positions. And, when I entered back in the summer of 10, things were kind of messy. And it took a long time to work with staff and try to reestablish some relationships and try to get things back on track from an administrative level. And that took some time and effort. But, others are right what they want. I really haven't reflected much on that much, Jake, other than just saying that, you wanted to come in every day, give it your best shot and do the best you could and let the chips fall where they may. But if you can leave and just say you made it just a little bit better, I think that would be all I would want on my, summary of my performance.
Well, I would add one important thing, which was fiscal responsibility. I think Greg over the years took some criticism for the fact that we had reserves. And some of you may remember the presentations that Ryan Nesbitt, our treasurer, made about the importance of a 501c3 having reserves for a rainy day. Well, it's been pouring the last 8 or 9 months, and having those reserves has put us in a much better position than many other major athletic programs in the country that chose to go deeply in debt and not to have anything in reserve. So I appreciate the fiscal responsibility that Greg provided to the Athletic Association, along with many other things, of course.
Okay, let's go to Augusta Stone with the red and black, and then Brandon Sudge with the Macon Telegraph.
Greg, I want to know what's been the most challenging part of leading the Athletic Association through the COVID-19 pandemic in your last few months here? And then along that line, what's a positive aspect you've been able to take from the difficulties of the year?
Well, Augusta, I think the toughest part is, athletics is all about teamwork and togetherness and huddles and locker rooms. And, we just haven't been able to experience that. That's been the most difficult thing because, the president and I aren't traveling this year because we're not technically essential and in the bubble. And so those are the difficult things. I remember the president and I were texting each other on the first road game. It was like, we've never experienced that before. So we've had to learn how to adjust, and so has everyone else. You've had to adjust. Our students have had to adjust, our faculty, and being able to pivot as quickly as the university has done is really a great story to tell. But everybody's had to adjust, and I think it's made it very difficult. I think the positive part of it is made us realize that we should be very grateful and thankful for things we probably took for granted. Maybe waiting in line at the concession stand or at a restroom, or maybe being a little in a parking jam. You know, we would cherish those things right now, or go to a tailgate. So I think the positive thing is when we do get back to normal, that I think people hopefully will be more understanding, will be more patient. You know, I know that's a wish. I don't know if that'll come true, but I just hope people will sit back and realize and look back on their time here and realize that the things we probably took for granted just are not taken for granted anymore. And we'll appreciate those experiences there. But the only way we could really do that is experience what we're going through right now, which nobody loves. And so I'm hoping that'll be the positive out of this, and that athletics in general may be a little bit more quiet, so to speak, in the world of social media and these things. And again, I'm just hopeful thinking. I'm not so sure that'll happen, but I'm just hoping that will lead into maybe a different perspective on things. Thanks for the question.
Of course, thank you.
Hey, Greg, so I wanted to ask you about Josh and Gaurice. So when you hired them in those roles, what did you see from them? What do you feel like they can do in this interim position? And then also, when you promoted Josh in January, did you do that with the retirement in your head, like in mind?
Well, you know, we had to get Josh back twice. I remember at one time he was actually in Dallas, Texas, fixing to accept a job with Jimbo Fisher at FSU. So we had to call him back and get him back in the fold. And then when he went off to be the athletic director at Millsaps and later at ULM, you know, we got him back again because we knew that he was a vital part of our program. And, you know, when he wasn't here, we really missed his enthusiasm, and he was kind of like a Pied Piper. He had a lot of followers. You know, great leaders have a lot of followers, and he was able to cultivate a large group of student workers and others that just enjoyed being around him. So his personality was contagious, and we really missed that. And he's brought that back to our program and is very popular among the staff. And he's just wired the right way. And the same with Doris. I tell you, folks, she is a superstar on the rise. Doris is so valuable to us, and you know, having served at Florida in a backup role, you realize how important those people are to your program to make the athletic director's job a bit easier. And Doris is just absolutely phenomenal, and I'm so glad the president did what he did on the interim basis, because that's a great 1-2 punch. Okay. But, you know, Josh had ascended to that role. I felt like it was important for him to receive that kind of recognition and kind of acknowledgement that he was, you know, the number 2 person here. And, you know, the title goes along with that, but his responsibilities grew, and he represented me when I wasn't able to be at athletic directors meetings or things of that nature. So, you know, very much like Jeremy Foley did for me at the University of Florida. I wasn't in the chair, but I was pretty close to it. So I was able to experience a lot of things that I would not have experienced unless somebody had been a great mentor to me. And that's all I wanted to do, really, to all our staff, is just mentor them and help them achieve their dreams. And what could I do to help them out?
Okay, we're going to ask Greg to stick around just for a couple more questions. We're going to excuse President Morehead, who has some other appointments. Before the president steps away, though, I have one question for Greg. The book on the windowsill behind your desk there, I can't read the whole title. Would you read that? What is the title of that book?
Okay, Claude, you're setting me up here. It's the Norton Anthology of Poetry, okay? I have it up there. I brought it out because I think it's kind of interesting to have, but Claude and I were looking at it, and as I opened it, and I very rarely open it in all honesty, okay, I found out my schedule at the University of Georgia in 1973, the spring quarter. We were on quarters back then, and I had 3 exams on the same day, and I was making an appeal to my advisor, George Abney, back in the J School back then. So I just thought I'd have a little fun with the Norton Anthology of Poetry back there, okay?
Well, George Abney was an iconic